Hey, I'm back with another video on Rome. This one will be a little longer than the previous ones because we'll take a deep look into pages in Rome, and then we'll end up with attributes. The end goal is to give you a better overview of what attributes are and what they are used for in Rome. So I've prepared a little roadmap here that we'll go through. First of all, in case you don't know, you can put attributes in Rome like this. So this is an attribute, for example. So you just have to put like two semicolon after the attribute, and then you can give a value. We'll go into more details later, but so you know what I'm talking about. And a quick note is that this is only my opinion and my view of how attributes and pages and stuff like that work in Rome. So yeah, let's dive into it. So first, an introduction. So it's like a quick theory part, because I think it's important to understand how things are connected in Rome. So first of all, a page can be seen like a simple document. So like, for example, this, you can just like type text and, I don't know, nest things inside. So that's a basic bullet point, links, text, sorry. So that's the simplest view of a page in Rome. A page can also be a tag or a reference. So for example, I don't know, I use this tag video. If I go to that page, you see it's related to these other pages. Usually when you use a tag, you will not have much content in there. You can, but usually I think that's fair to say that usually you won't have much here. Then a page can also be seen as an object. So what I call an object, it can be, for example, a book or a person or almost anything you can think of, and you can conceptualize in your system. So these objects will have properties. So, for example, a person, you can have a height or I don't know, a hair color or things like that. And I've got this example for you of a book. So I'll open this page. So I added this book, How to Take Smart Notes. I think most of you know that book. And this book has properties. So these properties is, for example, the author, the number of pages of the book, and the language. So let me get back to this other page, and I'll open this example in the sidebar with shift click. So yeah, we'll take this example throughout this video so that you can understand most of the things I'm talking about. And maybe to give a better understanding of this is to take the example of a spreadsheet, and more generally tables. So in spreadsheets, you have rows and columns. So each row is usually one object, which has several characteristics. So the headers of the columns are attributes, and then you give values to these attributes for that object. I hope it makes sense. If it doesn't, don't worry, it will in like a few seconds. So yeah, you guessed it. So that's how attributes take place in Rome. So these characteristics are described with attributes and values. for these attributes. And then last thing I wanted to cover is maybe a more advanced topic. So pages and even blocks can be seen as nodes into your graph, into your knowledge graph. So if I open this to see the graph, you see that each bullet is a page. And then there are links between these pages. Those links are what we call edges in graph theory. So we have nodes and edges between nodes. So like I said, the pages are the nodes. And then we have those edges between the pages. Where attributes can come handy is that, in my opinion, attributes can describe these edges. And why is this important? It's because some relationships might be different. So, for example, you have a node can be the parent of another node, or it can be just related to in some other way. If we take back the example of this book, Sonke Arends, I don't know how to pronounce that. I hope it doesn't. It's not too bad. So this guy is the author of the book, but it could very well be the person that recommended it. So when you see this book, let me take it. Okay, let me take the person. Okay, so it's related to that book. But is it the author or is it the person who recommended it? In this graph view, you don't know. But usually, in graph theory, we can put attributes on that relationship and specify some properties. So, for example, we would have here on the edge author of that book, and we could have another relation that would be recommended by or something like that. So that's another thing that I think will come in Rome. I'm not sure. So I hope that maybe Connor can confirm or infirm that. But that is how I understand attributes. So if the value you set on an attribute is a reference to another page, then this attribute becomes an edge. Obviously, if it's only a value, like this example, so on this attribute we set a value, which is not a reference to another page. In this case, it's maybe just like we said, a table property, and we set a value, and okay. But if this is a reference, then this attribute could become an edge on our graph, on our knowledge graph. Okay, I hope this is clear. Let's get to the good points. So, what can you do with attributes? Not much. For now, there's not much you can do with them, but it's coming, and there's still two interesting features. So the first one is automatically creating tables. Let me show you. I have my example here, so it will be easy. But what you can do is you can type double curly brackets, then at table, yeah. And then you can put here any page you have in your system. It won't do much if that page is not an attribute anywhere. But if it is, for example, if I take this author attribute, that's the example I have here. If I put author there, you see that this creates automatically a table with all the pages that have this author attribute. And then it auto-fills with the other attributes that are set on these pages. So now you see that I have another book in my like in this database, and we'll get to that later as well. And of course, if I added a third one, it would automatically populate this table. So that's one interesting feature. And another feature, kind of, is you can actually find all the pages where, for example, Sonke Arends is the author of. Let's take this example. So, for example, if I query this, so I look for every page where the author is this guy. Okay, so if you don't know about queries, yeah, there's other resources for that. If you're interested, I can make a video of it, on it as well. Just tell me. But just for the sake of this example, let's just trust me and understand that I'm querying all my pages that have the author, that have an author on them, let's say, and this guy is mentioned as well. So let's do that. And this is the result of my query. So obviously this block is coming out because of this. So I have the author and mentioning this guy. So this block is coming. So I can find back that book. Let me mention some interesting thing is that in this query, I'm not saying that author is an attribute at all. So it can be anything. So for example, if I try to be smart and I want to link this, and I want to link this, suddenly this block also comes in the result of the query, because I have no way of saying that. So let me show you the query again. I have no way to say that this author thing is an attribute. So it's appearing here as well. So for this query, this result makes sense. And in the same block, I have this Sonke Arends reference. So this makes sense to show it in the same results. Whoops. Let me hit Control Z a couple times. Okay, so we can end up that query. Yeah, so that's a problem because obviously you can use these two things in other places, and the query will not be as useful as it should be. Yeah, that's it. So that's the two main features that you can use attributes for. And let's let that open. And we'll get to the next point. So what you cannot do with attributes yet. So the first thing, no, it's not like I said here, but you'll see what I mean, is that you cannot. Okay, so let's read this. You cannot cross-filter a page against two tags in different blocks. So what I mean, for example, oh, I typed it already. So what I mean, for example, is that, so I have this query, and it's looking for a book where Sonke Arends is mentioned, let's say. And obviously, you saw the result. There's no result. Why? Because Sonke Arends and the book are referenced in the different blocks. So when we do queries like this, it's looking for blocks and not pages. Okay, so that's one thing to keep in mind. And I'll show you later a way around this. That's one of the main points of this video. Okay, let's keep that in mind. Yeah. So other fun features that may come, obviously, like I explained in the first point, we will have much more filtering and grouping features with attributes. So there is a mention, like I write here. There's a mention of this in the Rome help database, that we will be able to filter against multiple attributes. So that's exactly what we want to do here. We want to filter on the author attribute and on the type attribute, and this would hopefully help us find books with an author as concurrence. So hopefully this is coming. And yeah, also like better, more dynamic tables. For now, this is all we get. So we get this reasonably nice table. We can click on things, and then it will reference the block where this is mentioned and things like that. Hopefully, this can get way more dynamic. We can hopefully edit a thing on the go like that, or well, there's a lot of possibilities there. And also a more powerful graph visualization and features. So I showed you that for the moment. Okay, let's show you this again. Let's find what can we take? Okay, let's find the book. For now, we only have this. So we see that this book is linked to author, and this book is also linked to, I don't know, yeah, concurrence. Okay, so author, concurrence. Hopefully, like I said, what should be is that this author thing should be the edge between the book and the author. So I hope this is what's coming. At least it makes sense for me. I hope that Connor will give more insight about that. But in any case, we should have more feature coming in the graph-related area as well. Okay, let's close this and to the other point. So why would you use attributes? Like I said, it's a way more powerful feature, and it can avoid ambiguity. So, like I said, you can specify that this guy is the author and not the person who recommended this book to you or stuff like that. It can help you remember what you want to set as metadata on objects. What I mean by that is that now in this database, I can, whenever I enter a new book in my database, I can just grab all this, copy paste on the new book, and I know that I want to have these 4 attributes on that book, and that can help me in some way to like remember what info I want to collect on what type of objects, let's say, if that makes sense. Yeah, that's a bit on the future, so that's the main point about attributes. And a small tip that's coming at the end of this video, wow, is that you don't have to choose between like the nice future that we might have with attributes and the filtering capabilities. And we'll get to that later. Okay, a few things to know about attributes. So attributes are pages. For example, if I click this author attribute, I get to the author page. Yeah, let's not say more about this. So some people disagree with this. I personally think it's okay, but yeah. And one interesting thing about that is that, for example, is that you can rename all your attributes in one go. So, for example, if I want this to become just pages, I can just rename the page, and it will auto change on every instances. What more can we say? Okay, I see. So that's the interesting part. You can assign attributes to pages, so that's what we did here, but you can also assign attributes to blocks. So for example, I can say that this is a type of paragraph. And now, so you see it's become bolded. Now, for example, I can make an attribute table for type. And what it will show that in my database I have 2 books and 1 paragraph, and that the thing I put the type paragraph on is this. So if an attribute is placed, and it's this one if an attribute is placed. So in practice, this block has received this attribute. So it's not exclusively for pages. Let me delete this. Oops. Where am I? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so the way to do that is that when you want to put attributes on blocks, you just have to indent the attributes inside the block you want to set the attributes on. And if you want to set attributes on a page, it will just be level 1 blocks on that page. Pretty easy, pretty simple. And there's one exception that we'll cover later, just below here. One interesting feature as well is that you can assign multiple values to attributes. For example, let's say that this book is available in English and in French. Now when I get back to my attribute table here, I can see that my book is available in English or French. And one other thing that's interesting to know is that, let me get back to the normal, okay. So that's what you have to do when you set simple values to attributes. If your values are references, for example here, what you can also do is simply put them like one after the other. So for example, if I want to say that Charles is also the author, I can do that, and it will be populated here. What you can do also is put a comma in there, and it will do the same thing. And you can finally use the and keyword, and it will do the same thing. What you cannot do is use some other characters, because, okay, like for example, this I lost the links between the references and this page. So you cannot put other characters. You can put spaces. That's okay, space characters. But that's all. And obviously, when these are references, you can also nest them like we did before. So this will also work. Let me erase this so that it's kept clean. Okay, so that's all I think to set multiple attributes, multiple values on attributes. And then one last thing, if I'm correct, is that you can set attributes on pages elsewhere than on the page itself. Let me show you that. For example, I'm going to make the example here. If I mention this book, so how to take smart notes, and then indented in there, let's say I want to say that this. Okay, let's put another type just to be fun. And I want to say that this book is, I don't know, great. And I'll put this in the type because why not? So I want to say that this book is great, has a type of great. So this book has actually become a book great. And let's see that in the array. So we've effectively put another type on our book just by referencing the book in the parents node and then putting attributes on it. And let's say we want to say that let's say we want to say that this other book is also great. What we can do is that we can in this parent block we can just reference how to read a book, and it has a type of great. Okay, so now the type of grade has been set both on the first and the second book. And like I showed you for the multiple values, we can use comma to separate them, or we can use the end keyword, but we cannot use other characters because it's not working then. I didn't show you for for example, the end keyword. Yeah, this is working. Okay, so I think that is an interesting feature as well. So that means that you can add values to your attributes throughout your database, and you don't have to set them exactly on the page. Even though I think that's probably the best way to start, but you can do in some other ways. Okay, so finally, here comes the final bonus. So for the small story, I was not using attributes for a long time, and I was using another method from Anonyms. I hope most of you know this guy and his videos. What he was doing is that he was actually using soft line breaks, so not like that, to say, for example, author. He was doing this. And the main advantage of doing this is that now my query that I showed you here, that was not working. No, that's not this one. What you cannot do, it's here. The query I showed you here that was not working before because we wanted to find the book, the page which is a book and where Sonke Arendt is also mentioned. It was not showing before. Now it is because we have both references in the same block. So now this is working. So that's one main advantage of using like soft line breaks like that. But one disadvantage is that, of course, you cannot use attributes like that. So for some time I've used this method, but it was bothering me because eventually at some point we will have better querying features, and we will have to change everything in our database if we want to benefit from the attributes features. So actually my solution that I've come up with is a bit dumb probably, but let me show you. If we have a way to like put every references that we mention in our attributes in the same block, then this query is working again. So obviously the one disadvantage of doing that is that we have the reference twice. in this page. So, for example, if I go to that page, to the book page, now this page is referenced twice because I have twice the book tag on the page. Is it so bad? Not sure, but that's yours to decide. And yeah, so one interesting thing is that now, obviously the query is working, like I showed you, but also the filtering. So you can here filter to find all the books with Sonke Arends mentioned, and it will pop up. By the way, one small tip: if you don't want to see this query appearing, so that's the query we have used on the attribute page. I suggest you just filter it, so you shift-click query, and it will pop out of the results. Let me get back to normal, and then go back to the attribute page. So that's my dumb implementation of this. And one bonus is that I've actually made a way to automate this. So I'll show you. I'll delete this. What you have to do is you have to navigate to that page. So it has to be in the main panel. And then I've made a little bookmarklet. You just click it, and it will put in your how do you call that, clipboard, all the tags and references that are used for that page. So I just hit Control V or Command V, and it will paste these two references and a third one, which is just something you will not use anywhere else. So I hope you're not using duplicates anywhere else in your database. And the point of doing that is that, let me show you. I'll navigate to the book and go to this other book and do the same. So I click my bookmarklet, Command V. So you see this is working. So this is now this author. So the main point of this tag is that now I can navigate there. I can select all my entries where my tags are duplicated, and I can just delete them. And what it does, it deletes the block from all the pages. So the big plus of doing that is that when the features land for better querying and stuff like that, you can just remove all your duplicate tags in one go. Okay, so that was my point of view on attributes for now. I've just put a reference here for attributes in Rome in the official Rome help database. You can go and check that out. There are maybe some more features that I didn't cover. I'm not sure, but you can go and check that out if you want. Okay, I hope this was helpful. Don't hesitate to give any feedback like usual. I'm trying to make useful videos, and I'm preparing something for soon. So let's keep in touch. Bye.